You wake up early. You stay late. You put in the work, follow the rules, stay respectful, and do everything you're supposed to do. And still, you're struggling. Meanwhile, someone else, maybe less disciplined, less honest, definitely less exhausted, just floats to the top. You tell yourself to wait, to be patient, that if you keep your head down and grind hard enough, someday it'll all pay off. But deep down, there's a whisper that won't shut up. Something's wrong. And it's not just you. This story isn't new. It's everywhere, different cities, different countries, different generations. The hardest working people stay stuck, while the system claps for their effort and gives the rewards to someone else entirely. Why? Why do the most loyal employees retire broke? Why are essential workers, nurses, sanitation workers, delivery drivers, living paycheck to paycheck while others who barely lift a finger control everything? Is it bad luck? Is the economy broken? Is it just a corrupt system? What if it's none of those things? What if it's by design? What if poverty isn't just an unfortunate side effect? What if it's required? Not to be cruel, but to keep the machine running. Not through force, not through chains, but through belief. Through a carefully installed moral code that says, work hard, be good, stay obedient, and maybe one day you'll get your turn. That's the lie, the myth. You've heard it your whole life. Obedience is honorable. Struggle builds character. Be humble. Be helpful. Keep grinding. Don't complain. But that story was never written for you to win. This isn't just a glitch in capitalism or a flaw in democracy. It's deeper. It's older. And 500 years ago, someone actually saw it clearly. Wrote it down. His name was Niccolò Machiavelli. You've probably heard that name in the context of scheming and manipulation. But what he actually did was far more dangerous. He exposed the structure. He revealed how those in power stay in power. He wrote, "The ruling class doesn't just use force. They use illusion. They feed you hope, just enough to keep you working, but never enough to set you free. Hope becomes the leash. Morality becomes the muzzle. And poverty becomes sustainable. But here's the thing they never want you to realize. This isn't your fault. You were never lazy, never stupid. You were trained to believe in a game that was never designed for you to win." Machiavelli saw that power doesn't reward fairness. It rewards leverage. And what scared the elites the most wasn't violence. It was clarity. Because once you see the game, really see it, you stop acting like a pawn. You stop waiting. You stop asking, what am I doing wrong? And start asking, who benefits from me staying tired, loyal, and underpaid? You were taught to think that your honesty and humility would change your life. But Machiavelli would say those traits don't threaten the powerful. They serve them. The story that hard work equals success? That's not morality. That's management. Because in reality, your labor is just a resource. And resources, they're not meant to rise. They're meant to be used. Reliably, quietly, and if possible, gratefully. Your poverty isn't a reflection of your effort. It's a reflection of what you were taught to believe. You've been trained to serve. The people who rise, they've been trained to scale. And as long as you keep grinding, keep hoping, keep chasing the story they sold you, they'll keep climbing on your back. Not because you're weak, but because your strength is being harvested. You were told, suffer well and your time will come. But your suffering is not a rite of passage. It's a fuel source, keeps the machine running. And that's the most painful part. Because the moment you start to question it, the moment you wonder why nothing's changing, they show you a story, a myth, a miracle. They show you one guy who went from homeless to billionaire, one janitor who became CEO, one immigrant who made it from nothing to everything. And they say, see, you can do it too. But what they don't show you are the millions who didn't make it, who played by the rules and still got nothing, who worked until their hands bled and never even touched the top. They don't tell you how many doors were quietly opened behind the scenes for that one success story. They just point to the outlier and ask, why not you? So failure feels personal, not systemic, not rigged, just deserved. You didn't hustle hard enough. You didn't want it badly enough. So you go back to the grind. Again, harder this time, more loyal, more obedient. And that's when they spring the final trap. Debt. Buy now, pay later. Invest in yourself. You deserve it. Upgrade. Subscribe. Swipe. You don't earn to live. You earn to repay. And when you're in debt, you don't rebel. You don't question. You stay moving. You stay busy. And you stay tired. Because tired people don't start revolutions. They just try to make it through the day. And the machine keeps humming. Not because the poor are powerless, but because the tools used to pacify them are invisible. Education, morality, media, consumption, all engineered not to free you, but to tame you. And that's why it works. Because you can't fight what you can't see. And the most radical thing you can ever do, the beginning of freedom, is not rebellion. It's clarity. See, once you name a system, really name it, you start to see its edges. You start to doubt it, question it, poke holes in the story you've been living inside your whole life. And that's the threat. Not riots, not protests, but realization. Because power doesn't fear poverty. Power doesn't even fear rebellion. What power truly fears is clarity. Because when you stop believing the system is broken and start realizing it was built this way on purpose, you stop climbing the ladder. You stop playing the game. And that's when the whole thing begins to crack. But the system's not dumb. It knows how to keep you compliant. Not through chains, but through stories. It doesn't have to lock you in a cage. It just needs you to believe the door is about to open. So they say, you're close. Keep working. One more year. One more sacrifice. Just hang in there. Your time is coming. But it never comes. Because the system wasn't built to deliver. It was built to delay. Hope becomes the leash. And in a world that's dry and harsh and full of silence, even a drop of hope feels like salvation. So you hold on. You work harder. You stay quieter. And you blame yourself when the dream never shows up. You don't even see who benefits from your exhaustion because you're too tired to ask. That's how the machine keeps going. Quietly, smoothly, efficiently. And the lie stays alive because it was never screamed at you. It was whispered. Came from your teacher, your pastor, your parents. All well-meaning people who told you what they were told. Work hard, be good, wait your turn. And you believed them. You believed the formula. Effort equals reward. But what if that formula was never meant to apply to you? What if the system doesn't reward labor, but leverage? Because here's the uncomfortable truth. Your struggle, your sacrifice, they're not noble. They're profitable. Just not for you. Machiavelli knew this. He didn't romanticize rebellion. He just named the machine. He pointed out that the most powerful control doesn't come from threats. It comes from belief. From stories people defend with their whole identity. Because when someone ties their entire sense of self to a system, when they've spent 20, 30, 40 years sacrificing to prove their worth, they don't want to hear that the game was never real. That's too painful. That would mean all that time, all that effort was wasted. So what do? They double down. They say, work harder. Be grateful. Your time is coming. They pass the lie on to the next generation, not out of cruelty, but out of fear. Because if the story breaks, so does their sense of self. And that's what makes the system so effective. So elegant. It doesn't need to punish you. It just needs to shape you. And it starts early, not with violence, but with school. You're not taught to question. You're taught to memorize, to raise your hand, to ask permission, to wait your turn. You're told your worth lies in being helpful, obedient, responsible. You're not trained to build. You're trained to function. If you're born into the working class, your education isn't designed to unlock your potential. It's designed to prepare you for compliance. You don't graduate asking, what am I capable of? You leave asking, where do I fit? And that quiet shift from curiosity to conformity is where the system wins. Then comes morality. Not morality born from conscience, but morality crafted to serve power. You're told that poverty is virtuous, that suffering builds character, that your reward is coming, if not in this life, then in the next. You hear, the meek shall inherit the earth, but only if they stay meek. You're warned that wealth is dangerous, that ambition is selfish, Unless, of course, that wealth belongs to someone already at the top. And slowly, being good becomes synonymous with being passive, being tolerant, being quiet. So when you finally start to wonder why nothing's getting better, they give you a hero. They show you the underdog who made it, the janitor who became CEO, the immigrant who became a millionaire. And they say, look, it's possible. He did it. So can you. But they don't show you the millions who never made it, who followed every rule, worked themselves to the bone, and still got nothing. They don't show you how the game was tilted, how certain doors were opened for some and locked for everyone else. They just point to the outlier and say, see, he did it. Why not you? And you believe it. So you try again, harder, more grateful, more obedient. And while you do, they add one more chain. Debt. You're told to invest in yourself. Get the degree. Upgrade. Swipe the card. Sign the loan. You deserve it. But now, you don't earn to live. You earn to repay. You keep moving. Keep owing. Keep grinding, not for freedom, but for a promise that was never real. And it works. Beautifully. Because when you're in debt, you can't afford to question. When you're exhausted, you don't have the energy to fight. And when you're distracted, scrolling, swiping, surviving, you don't even see who's benefiting from your exhaustion. So the system stays intact. Not because the poor are weak, but because the tools used to pacify them are powerful. They're invisible. And that's why they work so well. Because the second you see the system clearly, it loses its grip. The second you realize the ladder doesn't lead anywhere, it just loops in circles, you stop climbing. You stop chasing validation. You stop blaming yourself. And that's when everything begins to change. So if you've ever asked yourself, why am I doing everything right but still falling behind? Maybe the real question isn't what else can I do? Maybe it's, was this game ever meant for me to win? Because once that question hits, not as despair, but as clarity, you stop waiting. You stop hoping for a seat at the table that was never built with you in mind. And that moment, that's where freedom starts. See, Machiavelli didn't write for kings. He wrote for the ones who live under the stories kings tell. The stories meant to keep people working, waiting, behaving. He didn't say to burn it all down. He said, stop bowing to it. Stop worshiping a structure that survives by making you feel broken. You were never broken. You were born into a machine that profits every time you doubt yourself. A system that ties your value to output, that teaches you morality is obedience, that trains you to measure your worth by how useful you are to someone richer. And when you don't succeed, when you fall short, when you can't catch up, what happens? You blame yourself. But you were never the problem. You were just following a script that says, work harder, play fair, stay loyal. But no one told you the rules weren't written to protect you. They were written to use you. You're not poor because you failed. You're poor because you believed. You believed the staircase led somewhere. You believed if you climbed long enough, gave enough, sacrificed enough, your turn would come. But the staircase doesn't go up. It goes in circles. While you climb, they collect. While you wait, they advance. While you sacrifice, they scale. And they convinced you it was fair. That's the brilliance. That's the cruelty. It's not about good versus evil. It's about architecture. It's about a structure that requires belief to function. And that's what Machiavelli saw, not a battle of morals, but a battle of perception. A system where the lie has to feel righteous to survive. A system where your suffering needs to feel noble, so you'll keep offering it. He didn't write to inspire revolt. He wrote to expose how the machine runs. And he wrote for people like you. People who are finally starting to see the pattern. People strong enough to stop pretending. Because the most radical thing you can do right now isn't to destroy the game. It's to refuse to be hypnotized by it. Don't expect fairness from a machine built to manipulate your loyalty. Don't wait for your moment in a system that was never programmed to give you one. And don't keep defending your own exhaustion just because it's all you've ever known. You don't need to become bitter. You need to become awake. You don't need to escape. You need to change your stance. You don't have to quit the world. You just have to quit believing the illusion that your obedience will one day be rewarded. Because no one's coming to save you. There's no medal for loyalty, no prize for patience. Your kindness is harvested. Your work, it's extracted. Your silence, it's expected. So stop begging the system to love you. It was never built to. It was built to use you. And if you've ever felt like you're running in place, working harder every year but getting nowhere, it's not in your head. You're just no longer hypnotized. And that makes you dangerous. Because once you stop believing, they can't sell you the dream anymore. They can't shame you for not reaching a finish line that keeps moving. You stop seeing yourself as a pawn and start realizing you were never meant to be a piece on their board. You were meant to build your own rules. And yeah, maybe you still want to play the game. That's okay. But if you do, play with your eyes open. Play by your values, not theirs. Know exactly what the cost is. Know who wrote the rules. And most of all, know that they weren't written for you to win just to keep you playing. But if something in your gut is telling you this game isn't worth it anymore, then trust it. You don't owe the system your belief. You don't owe it your loyalty. And you definitely don't owe it your silence. You can stop now. Stop climbing. Stop waiting. Stop hoping for validation from a structure that lives off your hunger. Because in that stillness, in that quiet refusal, you become something they can't use. Not loud, not violent, just awake. And that's enough to shake the whole machine. Because the system doesn't run on truth. It runs on belief. And when belief dies, control dies with it. So if you've ever wondered, why do I give so much and receive so little? If you've ever felt like the rules keep shifting beneath your feet, maybe the answer isn't to grind harder. Maybe the answer is this: you were never supposed to win. And now that you see that clearly, maybe, just maybe, you can stop chasing their definition of success and start writing your own.